Welcome to Codependency Alchemy, the podcast. I'm your host, Alyssa Zander, and I'm excited to get into the theme for this month. When I did the poll in the membership for the theme, I guess I'll give you guys a little background. I kind of tap into the energy of the group and ask for it to be clear of what themes this group collectively needs to hear at this time. And this particular month, it was a little intense. The two themes that came through were covert manipulation and addiction. And immediately I was like, no. There's got to be something else. Like, these are heavy. These are like heavy hitters. Like, let's do something else. And Spirit was like, no, nope, this is it. This is what the themes are. These are the options. And so I went with it. I shared it in our Telegram group, the membership. They did a poll, and everyone, we're silly in that group. Let me tell you, we're sending memes. I'm rolling on the floor laughing half the time. There's some good chat in these Telegram groups in the membership. So ultimately, between covert manipulation and addiction, it was a close call, but manipulation won. And so I didn't think about this at the time, but the masterclass was during my time in Hawaii. And for those who don't know, I did my first in-person retreat for clients of mine on the Big Island. And coincidentally enough, when I was moving through manipulation in my life, it happened to be my first time on the Big Island. So I was seeing this whole full circle moment happening where I was like, okay, when manipulation showed up in my life for the first time, for me to see it with this conscious awareness, it was when I was on the Big Island a few years ago, or a couple years ago. And here it is again, me sharing about it in this membership. And so, like I said, it felt like this beautiful full circle moment where I got to share a little bit of what I've learned over the years with them. And the way that I feel like the Big Island was showing me about manipulation was through masculine and feminine energies. And so I'm going to share that here with you guys today as well. So to start us off, what is manipulation? Manipulation is a distorted tool that we use as a way to control. It's usually used in a way to try and obtain a certain outcome. And so going back to that first conscious exploration that I was having on the island, I was with my partner and we were on this walk. I'm just going to tell you the story. It's a real good one for me. It's embarrassing, but we at the time hadn't bought our house in Portland. So we were looking at houses, and we had looked in Arizona, we had looked in Oregon, and we were looking at houses on the Big Island. In my head, it was like a done deal. We were going to buy a home on the Big Island. But when we were on this hike, my partner had shared that he had no intention of moving to the Big Island, that he had no intention of moving to Hawaii, period. And it illuminated so much for me because immediately I was activated. And I started doing all these like so embarrassing things. On this hike, I immediately went to like freaking out on him. Like, well, why are we looking at houses if you didn't even have an intention of moving here? Like, not to say that my partner probably didn't have some things to do on his end. We're all a work in progress, but I totally just annihilated him with my words. And then when that didn't work, I like swung to this other side where I then gave the silent treatment. I just like ignored him. I walked like, I don't know how many paces in front of him. I was basically running through the jungle, trying to like prove a point with my silence. It's funny looking back at it. And on this walk, I began to notice and like feel the ways that I was manipulating the situation. First, I tried to control by striking fear in him, right? Like, why would you do that? Like, I had already like made up a whole plan in my head of like, well, I'm going to move to the island by myself and like trying to elicit fear by making him wrong or making him feel bad about not wanting to move to the big island. And then when that didn't work, I swung to try to control by basically withdrawing my love, by giving the silent treatment, by pushing away and ignoring. So when I got back to where we were staying, I began to really sit with, okay, look at these two ways that you were clearly trying to manipulate the situation because you felt out of control in that moment. And I tried to be very gentle with myself. And it helped that we were in Hawaii, right? Because it's beautiful there. And it was definitely holding me as I was navigating these like extremely uncomfortable patterns. And so the way that I was seeing it, like I said, was masculine and feminine. And so I'm going to talk about masculine first. The masculine uses manipulation as a tool for control, to control an outcome. It has fear of liberation and freedom. So because I was experiencing this fear of not having control, because it was thrown at me that there was no intention of buying a house on the island. We'll just continue to use my example. Because I felt out of control, I tried to cling to different ways to gain that control by, making him wrong, making him feel bad, to try to get him to basically adhere to what I wanted. And so then we have the feminine who uses manipulation as a tool for feeling accepted, loved, or needed. And it has a fear of abandonment or rejection. So because I was feeling like my idea was being rejected, I'm not feeling that acceptance or that love. So I'm going to keep that love from someone in order to try to feel not rejected. So by rejecting someone else, there's the hope or the belief that then we will feel less rejected, which is just, again, dysfunctional. This is all dysfunctional distortion, which no one's bad or wrong for doing these things. It's just a pattern or a tendency. And hopefully this episode is just giving you a little bit more of a conscious awareness around this tendency so that we can make different choices moving forward. So I want you to just think about a time where you didn't get what you wanted. You might think about what you did, what you said, and how did you feel? Did you feel fear around not having control? Did you have a fear around feeling rejected or abandoned? Just begin to get curious about what are your go-tos, and maybe both, right? Like for me, I was experiencing both these types of manipulation all in the same situation, right? And so that could be true for you too. And maybe you lean towards one in certain situations and another one in others. The point is really to create awareness and bring curiosity to what is your pattern. Can you notice what you do or what you say when you don't get what you want? And for me, this was so illuminating because I wasn't getting what I wanted around where I wanted to live and wanting to live on the island. And so by making my partner wrong or bad for not wanting to live there, I was keeping myself from just even enjoying the process of finding a home together. And like, where did I have these underlying expectations that I didn't communicate? And so now I'm projecting those onto him. And maybe also, where did he have those as well? And when these ruptures happen in our relationship, I think that we get to begin to use them more as an opportunity for deeper intimacy and connection, rather than continuing to make one person right and one person wrong. Because I could have continued to make him wrong for not communicating something clearly to me, which even now that I'm saying this out loud, like right now, I'm like such a projection, because that's literally what I was doing as well. But because I took ownership for my part and for what I was experiencing and sharing with him, like, I saw that this is what I did. I withdrew my love. I made you wrong. This is what I said. And the truth is that I'm just feeling out of control. The truth is that I'm just fearing, rejection of my ideas. And by having that kind of conversation, we get to grow as a partner, as a partnership, because he now gets to see where I'm coming from. And I think a lot of times we withhold that because we want them to do it first. I see it all the time with people that I work with. Well, I want him to do it. Oh, I want him to take initiative. Well, I want him to say something. It's always me. And I always come back to, yeah, because you want to live a radically different life. You desire a radically different experience and radically different way of relating, not only to your relationship, but to your life. And so that does mean taking ownership. That does mean taking responsibility as many times as you need to. I'm still doing it in my relationship. And when we begin to embark on taking ownership and saying, hey, I did this thing. Hey, I was being a little manipulative, and this is what I've learned about that. That fosters a brave space for both people to be vulnerable, because it says, hey, I realize I'm not perfect. So much so that I'm going to point out all the ways that I wasn't perfect in this situation. And that inspires others to do the same. If she feels safe enough to share where she fucked up, then maybe it's safe enough for me to share where I fucked up. And maybe that doesn't happen right away, but over time it compounds, right? And that's why I'm like a broken record in my relationship. Like, this is where I fucked up. This is where I fucked up. This is where I'm still making like poo-poo choices. And because I'm able to do that, it actually allows me to move through them quicker instead of sulking in it, or instead of feeling isolated or alone in my relationship, instead of feeling like a victim, because I'm bringing these things to the table. So my invitation to you is, when you're exploring that situation where you didn't get what you wanted, can you have this kind of conversation with that person? Hey, can I have a conversation about the situation, whatever the situation was? There's some things I was learning about myself that I want to share with you. I know it sounds probably a little scary, and maybe you're like, absolutely not, can't do that. That's fine. You don't have to be there right now, but even just show up and share with yourself through writing in your journal. Like, just allow yourself to really witness this part of you, because when you do, it takes away from the weight and the heaviness and the burden of that. It is literally the shadow work. We're bringing the shadow to the table, and instead of exiling it and saying like, no, that's not me, and I don't do that, and there's not a manipulative bone in my body, what we're doing is we're repressing a part of us that is just going to get louder and louder over time. Trust me, I have a lot of experience with it. It was when I opened the door and allowed that part to sit across from me, and I said, okay, the part of me that manipulates, what do you have to show me? There is wisdom, but first they need to be seen, and compassion gets to be built for that part of us. And then they soften and they show us what they're really here to help us with, what their wisdom is for us in our lives. Because the wisdom in uncovering the ways that I manipulate, the gift that it gave me is my power, not only my power, but my uncovering of radically accepting, I keep saying radically for this some reason in this episode, but radically accepting and loving myself, which is the opposite of what the feminine part feared, right? Abandonment and rejection. Radically accepting and loving myself, and actually even inviting myself into safety of my liberation and freedom. Realizing that I was afraid of my freedom and liberation was like mind explosion, because you hear it and you're like, why would I be afraid of liberation? Why would I be afraid of freedom? And for me at the time, it was because I hadn't experienced it. I had built so much safety around living in chaos. I had built so much safety in living in distortion and conflict and dysfunctionality that freedom and liberation felt unsafe. And so, because I was able to look at manipulation through this lens of the fears of not being in control and the fears of rejection and abandonment, I got to show up for those parts of me in a very profound way that has led to more peace and joy in my life. And I hope that through this episode and this, playing with this idea, that you can find some of that too. So that's what I have for you today on manipulation. I felt like it was going to be a little heavy to talk about in this podcast episode, but it didn't feel so heavy. So, but that's mine on my end. I've done some work around this. So I'd be curious to hear how this episode landed for all of you. And check out ways to connect with the community by joining the Telegram channel. The community is free. There is also the membership. The membership gives you access to monthly Zoom calls where you'd be going through this stuff with me, not afterwards, but in real time. And we do a lot of shadow work, inner child healing, hot seat coaching in the membership, and would obviously love to have you a part of that community. It is growing and it is amazing. It's what I wish I would have had when I was in the depths of my codependency, which I'm still unraveling from because I'm a human, and still having a group of women, a sisterhood alongside me in the journey has been just life-changing. And so I'm excited to see how this continues to grow. If you also love to read and want to go through a journey and a ceremony of healing the mother wound within you, my book, Healing the Mother Wound with Mother Earth, is now available for you to buy. When you purchase through the Book Baby bookstore, who is publishing my book, I obviously receive more support as a small creator, but you can buy the book on Amazon and Barnes & Noble as well. So feel free to check it out. When you join the membership, I love to send a signed copy to you. So if you want to join the membership, hit a girl up and I will get a signed copy to you if you're in the US. It gets a little crazy to send internationally, but anyways, I love you all, and I hope you enjoyed this week's episode, and I will see you soon. Love you.